astrocyte support systems dictate more than your raw neuronal firing rate. We usually focus solely on synapses, thinking neurons are the masters of thought. But what if their energy supply is actually the governor? Think of astrocytes as a sophisticated power grid managing a massive city. Without stable voltage and proper maintenance, everything flickers even if all components work perfectly. These cells manage metabolic load, buffering toxic byproducts like glutamate to maintain clean cognitive function. This is not about adding another pharmaceutical booster or supplement stack for focus. It is about optimizing this internal energy field through simple physiological adjustments like dialing in your vagal tone or aligning with natural cycles, making our bodies their own ultimate neurooptimizers. To truly optimize that internal field, we have to look past the neurotransmitters themselves, down to how cells generate power. Consider mitochondrial respiration in both neurons and astrocytes. This is where efficiency meets function. When these glial ATP transporters are modulated, it is not just about clearing waste. It fundamentally adjusts cellular energy availability across the synapse, affecting key molecules like BDNF that dictate long-term learning potential. Think of your brain's metabolic state as a sophisticated battery charger. If the charge regulation fails at the microscopic level, the astrocytic buffering mechanism we discussed earlier, peak cognitive output, is impossible regardless of how well you sleep. The intervention points lie in aligning these deep cellular rhythms through autonomic input, not just by adding more compounds to your diet. We have talked about maintaining steady cellular energy. Think of that same sophisticated internal system as a critical stress dampener. When astrocytic buffering reaches peak optimization through these subtle metabolic tunings, something far more profound happens than better focus. The brain gains what we call cognitive plasticity resilience. It means the network does not collapse under acute demands or high emotional load. It absorbs the shock and recalibrates instantly. This is where biochemistry meets deep behavioral adaptation in real time. But this capacity for immediate self-repair, that ability to maintain perfect operational equilibrium during intense stress, which means something nobody expected for how quickly you could recover from a failure of attention. It's deeper than simply clearing waste or handling stress shocks. It is about cellular power production itself. When we talk about maximizing that internal metabolic efficiency, we are really talking mitochondrial respiration inside both your neurons and supporting astrocytes. This is not just maintenance. This is the engine of high-demand thinking. Think of synaptic function not as a switch being flicked, but as a complex electrical grid running on incredibly stable power. The way these glial ATP transporters regulate energy availability across that synapse directly dictates factors like BDNF production, the key molecule for long-term learning potential itself. But here is the wild part. Some researchers suggest this whole system requires absolute quiescence to function optimally. I want you to think about what they mean by peak metabolic resonance and why we are focusing on diet rather than just drugs. But achieving this deep cellular resonance demands more than perfect mitochondria alone. It requires specific external communication signals to tell those glial power systems exactly when and how hard they should run. Think of it like tuning a massive orchestra. You need the conductor, not just healthy instruments. The key is modulating vagal tone, that internal brake pedal for your nervous system. A slight adjustment here directly impacts astrocytic buffering capacity across regions previously considered static. But this signaling does not stop at simple energy optimization. When that specific autonomic rhythm hits a certain frequency, it initiates an almost immediate upregulation of glial ATP synthase activity in those most demanding neural circuits. What happens next is what changes everything about how we approach performance and rest. That optimized frequency we just tuned, that increased glial energy production inside critical circuits, it does far more than enhance endurance or sharpen your focus. Finding is stranger. It suggests the metabolic state itself fundamentally changes how information within your brain can combine and stabilize. Researchers call this cognitive resonance shifting. It stops being about simply having a larger battery reservoir for thought. Peak cellular efficiency appears to act like an intrinsic filter, dictating which inputs are allowed into deeper processing loops at all. This implies that optimal glial function is not just maintenance against decay. It is actively shaping the structure of your immediate reality. And this leads us to ask, If metabolic tuning dictates how we perceive and integrate information, what happens when that system begins to fail? We have traced this complex feedback loop from energy generation right into how information is organized in your brain. The verdict is not about finding a quick fix or supplementing every deficiency. Instead, we see that absolute systemic stability comes down to rhythm. Your body possesses the precise frequency required to guide glial function naturally. This means dialing in specific autonomic patterns and anchoring your activities to circadian timing becomes the most potent intervention for metabolic resonance. It is control over input timing, not just maximizing cellular throughput. The full research archive is at jmthomasofficial.com. The system we track shows that peak cognitive function is not a resource you extract. It is an equilibrium state you build. When your cellular power grid achieves this stable resonance through rhythm alone, the brain acts like perfectly calibrated architectural structure, not merely a collection of wires. It gains intrinsic resistance to information overload and metabolic decay itself. The specific takeaway is simple. Treat deep rest periods as critical tuning sessions for the entire system, coordinating them precisely with daylight signals. That alignment is not about winding down. It is recalibrating your internal power source. Stop looking for a focus pill. Start treating the foundational rhythm like an engine schematic. This systemic mastery dictates longevity itself. The full research archive is at jmthomasofficial.com.